We actually have measurements for a rock where the actual age is known. Rock taken from a volcano in Hawaii was measured to be somewhere between 160 million to 3 billion years old. The volcano was just 200 years old. Rock taken from the recent Mount St. Helens eruption was measured to be 350,000 years old. The rock that was measured from Mount Ngauruhoe in New Zealand, the age measured was from 270,000 to 3,500,000 years. The real age was less than 70 years old. And the list goes on and on. Richard L. Mauger, associate professor at East Carolina University, explains what the problem is. He admitted, in general, dates in the correct ballpark are assumed to be true and are published. But, he continued, those in disagreement with other data are seldom published, nor are discrepancies fully explained. William D. Stansfield, former emeritus professor of genetics at California Polytechnic University, acknowledged the same type of problem. Quote, "It is obvious that radiometric techniques may not be the absolute dating methods that they are claimed to be. Age estimates on a given geological stratum by different radiometric methods are often quite different, sometimes by hundreds of millions of years. There is no absolutely reliable long-term radiological clock." End of quote. With such manifestly inaccurate readings being somewhat common, it would seem that none of these age measurements would ever be used. In other words, it is pretty consistent that the actual age of rocks is usually a tiny fraction of the measurements produced by radiometric methods, if the true age is known. This would imply that all of the measurements that are in billions or millions of years would be in the thousands, or possibly the hundreds of thousands, in reality. Of course, this revelation of how inaccurate these age measurements have been would seem to eliminate any likelihood of evolution being correct. Why? Because not even evolutionists would say evolution took place in mere thousands of years, even hundreds of thousands of years. This would also imply that when we are told some creature, such as a dinosaur, is millions of years old, then they are actually only thousands of years old as well, because the creatures cannot be older than the area of Earth that they are found in. So, if that ground is only thousands of years old, so are the fossils that are found in them. So it is no wonder that we have found soft tissue in dinosaurs, which also limits the age to thousands of years. And radiocarbon tests, which is limited to about 50,000 years maximum, that place an age on dinosaurs in the mere thousands of years. It would seem that everything that we have been told about the age of the Earth, and even the age of various creatures like dinosaurs, has been turned completely on its head. There is one area where honesty is beginning to show through. Just 2 or 3 decades ago, it was proclaimed that stalactites and stalagmites, that is, the cone-shaped structures hanging from the ceilings and sticking up from the floor of caves, were millions of years old. For instance, there were signs on the entrance of the Carlsbad Caverns as well as other caves throughout the nation that proclaimed that these stalagmites and stalactites were millions of years old. Creationists have said for decades that there is evidence to show that they are not even close to that age. Science bore this fact up when it was discovered in many places where these structures were formed literally thousands of times faster than we were told. Many of these posted signs that said they were millions of years old have now been changed drastically or even removed. This is the only subject area I am aware of where evolutionists have seemed to concede to what creationists have proclaimed all along. But this is a huge concession, because it can begin a huge snowball effect. So at this time, the scientific evidence appears overwhelming that the millions or billions of years that we have been told are extremely inaccurate. But we are still given these great ages for the universe, the earth, dinosaurs, etc. Why? Because most of us think anything can happen if given enough time. Time seemed to be the magic ingredient that makes the impossible possible. But today, even that is being questioned and even disproven.